I'm back in 10.
Well, with the Fed raising interest rates again, it's likely to have a negative effect on mortgage rates, of course. It's one of the factors that will make this year's housing market unlike one we haven't seen in over 40 years, at least according to our next guest. We're pleased to have Anthony Lamacchia, owner of Lamacchia Realty, back with us this morning. And you've been crunching all the numbers for us, Anthony. Good to see you again. Before we start looking ahead now to 2023, let's look back to last year and kind of sum up what kind of year it was in terms of sales and prices and all that other stuff. How would you assess 2022?
Well, 2022 was interesting. It was the year that had to happen at some point. The thing that surprised us is how abrupt it happened. I mean, last year at this time, the market was in a situation where inventory was extremely low. People were fighting over houses at an extreme level. Right now, there's even multiple offer situations, but it was over the top extreme. Then rates started going up in March. By the time we got to June, rates were up 3% from the winter. I mean, it was substantial, or maybe it was 2.5. By the time we got to October, they were up more than double what they were in the winter. Last year at this time, they were 3.7. So that really slowed things down.
A graphic that illustrates what happened last year, but a dip in the numbers after it was so bonkers there for a while. I mean, it had to, like you said, this was inevitable.
Absolutely, and that's the part that I think people forget. 2021 was a peak year. Okay, we had over 100,000 home sales in Massachusetts for the first time since '05. Well, if every year was a peak, there wouldn't be a peak. So now we're having to come back down off that, but like you see in all phases of economics, we're in somewhat of an overcorrection where it's going to slow down extra for a year or two and then get back to normalcy again.
So the weird thing, too, the sales were down, what, 16.7%?
Yep.
But prices were up almost 9%.
Correct.
So that's kind of a weird...
It's a different scenario than in '08 and '09. You know, everybody keeps comparing to that, and I know you read my predictions, and I appreciate that. But one of the things that I pointed out in there is I said, this is not an '08 scenario. This is an early 1980s scenario.
Well, I want to talk about 1982, which is a great year for a lot of different reasons, all right?
I was one then.
I won't tell you how old I was, but high school ended that year for me. And American Fool, released by John Mellencamp, Hurt So Good, which will Hurt So Good apply to the market this year in 2023?
Well, I think both sides are in a situation where they're not getting everything they want. Buyers are hoping for prices to just fall out. They either don't want to buy because they're worried it's going to crash, or they're hoping it's going to crash. I have news for both. Prices are not going to crash. We're not in an '08 scenario. Will they settle down a little? Have they already settled down a little? Yes, but the inventory of homes for sale is far too low. At this moment, there's 7,000 homes for sale in Massachusetts. At this time in 2007 and 2008, there was over 40,000. You have to have an overabundance of homes for sale for prices to fall out. We're not in that situation. Now we're in a situation where there's definitely less buyers than there were, undoubtedly less demand. There's no argument about that. But there's also less sellers because many sellers don't want to give up their rate.
Right. So if they get that good rate, they're like, I'm just going to hang on to this and I'll do it later. As we look ahead there, Anthony, so this year, do you think inventory levels will come up? Generally get to the spring. It's like, well, I'll list in the spring, that sort of thing. Will those trends continue?
It will definitely improve, but I do think this is going to be a year that a lot of sellers continue to hold back. In time, life catches up. People have growing families, they have death, divorce, estate sales, all different kinds of things. So people have to sell, people have to buy, but I do think we're in for a year where home sales are just going to be slower. And I will tell you, January numbers obviously aren't out yet, but home sales, not prices, I hate when people get confused with the two, home sales are going to be down probably 25 to 30%. And that's substantial, and that's a real shock to the beginning of the year, but it is what it is.
Well, we'll stay.
The show goes on.
Yeah. Well, we'll check back in with you as things go on to see how the market's affected and see if anything else changes as we go along. Anthony Lamacchia, always good to see you, my friend. Lily, let's get it to you.
All right, thanks, guys. Getting ready.